This person had seen two cars with government plates, but people in it, they were plain clothes. They were committing horrific crimes, and in one case, they got to a teenager and they beheaded this teenager.
This is no longer a protest movement. It's more like a war on civilians. Across Iran, the Islamic Republic is shooting, arresting, and killing its own people under a near-total digital blackout. Eyewitnesses describe mass killings, bodies being removed by the truckload, and neighborhoods placed under de facto martial law. Today on Eye for Iran, we focus on what may be the most consequential question yet. What will the world do now? In our first segment, I'm joined by Michael Makovsky and Blaise Misztal of the Jewish Institute for National Security of America, authors of a new paper arguing that the U.S. policy toward Iran must explicitly aim for regime collapse. They say any hesitation risks emboldening Tehran and abandoning Iranians risking their lives.
A showdown of some kind coming that the United States will be there to help protect the Iranian people when that happens, or help protect our partners in the region. And then the next showdown will be the last one.
It should be U.S. policy that to seek the collapse of this regime.
In our second segment, Mehdi Yahyanejad, a longtime Iranian-American democracy activist. His nonprofit has helped smuggle Starlink to Iran. He joins us to share what his sources inside in Iran are reporting, despite the internet blackout.
The brutality was much higher, and even machine guns stationed on the roofs, shooting at people and so on.
And in our final segment, we turn to the human costs of this uprising. I'm joined by Dr. Nazak Tavakoli, co-founder of the Iranian Association of Human Rights and Allies, Iman Vaez, political activist, and Sogand Fakheri, Emmy Award-winning actress from the TV show Tehran, for a deeply personal conversation about fear, loss, resilience, and what this moment means for Iranians at home and in the diaspora.
Do not lose hope, because even though it's the darkest hour of the Iranians in the past almost 48 years,
we tell everybody who's been fighting for freedom, for democracy, for a better life for Iran. And we say that finally we got our Iran back. We kept our promise.
We got to put our effort now. We got to be angry. We got to put our effort, and we got to do the best that we can to save our country.
I'm Negar Moshahedi, and this is Eye for Iran. As Iran's streets turn into killing fields, the debate in Washington is no longer abstract. My first guests argue that the United States must stop treating the Islamic Republic as a permanent reality and instead make regime collapse an explicit goal of U.S. policy. Michael Makovsky is president and CEO of the Jewish Institute for National Security of America, and Blaise Misztal is JINSA's vice president for policy. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. So you're authors of a new paper that begins with a very stark conclusion. When it comes to this moment in Iran, it's regime collapse, and the rest is just commentary. Tell us what you mean by that.
Yeah, and by the way, that's it's a paraphrase of a Talmudic line from, I think it's Rabbi Hillel, who says, I forgot exactly, but he says something's really important. I think treating your fellow man is the most important thing, and all the rest is commentary. So basically, and we've argued this for a number of years now, that U.S. policy needs to be regime collapse. We don't say regime change because I think when Americans hear that, they think of 2003 with Iraq. That's not what we're talking about. The regime will fall because it can only fall when the Iranian people bring it down, but it should be U.S. policy that to seek the collapse of this regime, and that means pressuring it in every way and doing in every possible way, but economics, every way. However, it also means don't give it legitimacy, don't do anything that will prolong the regime, and don't do anything that will enrich the regime. So that means no negotiations with the regime. We have felt that for a long time now, and we got to just squeeze this regime to facilitate the Iranian people to bring it down.
Yeah, but before we go into more detail about, the tangible ways to do that, that's an important distinction here. Talk to us more about the difference between regime change and regime collapse.
Well, again, I think regime change, the denotation of it is just a change of regime. That could happen all sorts of ways. But again, I think when Americans generally hear that term, they think of American troops on the ground, boots on the ground, bringing down the leader and the regime like we did in Iraq in 2003. And we're not talking about that. We don't think that's realistic. We don't really support it. We just think, again, the Iranian people have to do it. But what we could do is to pressure the regime and undermine in every possible way and help the people bring it down.
Yeah, that would be a huge support to the people of Iran who are mostly unarmed. And Blaise, when we say regime collapse, what would that unlock for the U.S. Politically speaking and strategically speaking?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to look back at the history of U.S. relations and policy towards Iran, especially over the last 4 or 5 administrations, where we've had a policy of preventing a nuclear Iran, a policy of trying to stop the Islamic Republic's spread of terrorism, both in the Middle East and around the world. More recently, dealing with the threat of the ballistic missiles and drones that the Islamic Republic has. But that's always been sort of as far as American policy got. We had these problems that were clear and present problems, and we didn't really tie them back to the ideology and nature of the regime that we were dealing with. And that was maybe for a good reason, particularly when looking at the nuclear program. That clock was ticking so fast, and the clock on the regime's eventual passing from the stage maybe was ticking, but it wasn't clear when that alarm would go off. And so we had a clear and present problem to deal with, and that was the nuclear program. And anything else we just couldn't really focus on because we didn't know what the timing of it was. But 2 things changed dramatically in the last 6 months. One was Israel's Operation Rising Lion and the U.S. Operation Midnight Hammer, which stopped that nuclear clock, which bought time to focus on other things. And then obviously what the Iranian people have done in the past 2 weeks and coming to the streets and showing that they want to be free, they want to live under a different regime, which sped up that regime collapse clock. And I think that really gives U.S. policymakers a chance to focus on what the real problem is. Yes, it's a problem that Iran is the world's greatest state sponsor of terrorism. Yes, it's a problem that it's pursuing nuclear weapons. Yes, it's a problem that is building all these ballistic missiles and drones and other types of weapons. But all of that stems from it being the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Yeah.
And if we now have the chance not just to deal with those individual problems, but to deal with the root of the problem, the nature of this regime, then we create a chance for a whole different Middle East. We create a chance for peace in the region, freedom for the Iranians, a new partner with a Western-oriented, freedom-loving Iranian people as they once were. And I think that both makes the U.S. more secure, it makes the Iranians freer, it makes our partners in the region, whether that's the Israelis or our partners in the Gulf, more secure. And it really, I think, dramatically changes the geopolitical landscape. And at a time when the U.S. says it's more interested, whether that's in the Western Hemisphere or in the Pacific, dealing with the China threat, it takes away a lot of that stress and a lot of the reasons we keep going back to the Middle East. And so it's nothing but strategic upside for us.
And Blaise, you talked about chance. Something like this, I mean, does it have a shelf life, a moment like this?
I mean, I don't want to say it has a shelf life because that desire for freedom that the Iranian people have showed is not going to go away. I think it's a question of when and how often will it come back. And I think we've seen, if we just cast our eyes back over the last 15 or so years, that it does reappear. We had the 2009 Green Movement. We had 2017, 2018, 2019. We had Women, Freedom, Life Movement in 2022 onwards. The tempo is picking up, which I think shows how how illegitimate this regime in Tehran is. But when that next spark will come, no one can predict. And so I think, given the opportunity that we have, where Iran's terrorist proxies are down, the threat is so much lower, the nuclear program has been set back, and you have people in the streets, this is a moment like no other. And I don't know when the stars will align like this again. So I don't think there's a shelf life. I think this regime is going down sooner or later, but why not make it now? When is a better time than now?
So that window of opportunity is there at this moment and should be taken.
It's there for the taking. That's right.
And can I add one thing to what Blaise said?
Please do.
Oh, sorry. And I would add, you got President Trump. And, other presidents, Biden, Obama, they pretty much ignored the protesters that Blaise referred to in those years. And by the way, President Trump in his first term really didn't pay much attention to him either. But now he has. I do believe it means it compels him to act. But he's also another element here, and he's completely unpredictable. But he's the first U.S. president, I think, to really express real genuine support and sympathy for the Iranian people when they rise up and protest. And I could add just one last thing, is that, again, we said, regime collapse and all the rest is commentary, because once you make that the policy, everything else follows from that.
Yeah, everything else just falls into place. And Michael, you talked about President Trump, and he did say help is on the way. And that if you shoot, we're locked and loaded, we'll shoot you back. Tens of thousands of people have been killed so far. It seems like there hasn't been any consequences yet. I mean, he did enact tariffs. He placed tariffs on countries doing businesses with Iran, and there are already, secondary sanctions and whatnot. But once that red line has been crossed and nothing follows, what is the outcome of that?
It's a good question. And look, there's been a tremendous slaughter of the Iranian people, obviously, and it's just horrendous. And, they turned off the internet. We couldn't see it all right away, but obviously we've learned about it, including reading it in Iran International and watching the clips on the website. I think that it compels them to act. It would have been with that kind of rhetoric, which was highly unusual for a U.S. president, highly unusual. I think it means he has to act, I think, for two reasons. One, for his own credibility, and two, to help change the dynamics on the ground. And I would just add that it would have been ideal if he would have acted during that slaughter, unfortunately, because the regime needed to be punished immediately, and the people of Iran needed to feel that the world was behind them and supporting them, and that would have been good. I don't know why he didn't do it. I mean, clearly there are allies in the region. I'm specifically talking about Arab allies that were against it. I think the Israelis were opposed, but I think that was more tactical. But I believe he still he has to act. I don't know if his action, what we'll do. Blaise and I have recommended various things, short-term and long-term things that the president could do. Short-term could be hitting senior IRGC and besieged leaders, pillars of this awful regime. You could give weapons to the opposition. You could quarantine the oil exports. You could do a number of things, some things short-term and long-term, but I think he still has an opportunity to do it. I don't know, given what's happened on the ground, how, if the people will be able to capitalize on that, if we'll reassure them and get them out on the streets again. I don't know if that moment is past for now. As Blaise said, I think it will come back. I just don't know when. But I think he has absolutely no choice but to do it, because if he doesn't do it, it will go down as an historic mistake.
Not only that, the policy of deterrence, right, as well.
Yeah, right. I mean, the Iranians have called his bluff for now. I believe he'll act because he knows he has to. I can't say that with 100% certainty. I just think he recognizes that. He's shown himself willing to make take dramatic action, daring actions in the past, including with Maduro and Soleimani and so on, and Midnight Hammer. So I think I wouldn't underestimate him on this, but if he doesn't, it will go down as a tragic mistake, I think, by the United States.
And a question for you both, given that so much time has passed now, what is the single most effective thing that he could do, given where we're at this point, from the list of suggestions that you both had?
All right, I'll take a couple. I'll leave the rest to Blaise, maybe. Again, going back to the beginning, I think he has to make clear this regime has to go, and there could be and there's no negotiations with this regime, and the U.S. will do whatever it can to help facilitate this regime leaving. It's not just the supreme leader; it's the regime. If he, just for the sake of argument, if the U.S. did something and eliminated the supreme leader, but leaves the rest of the regime intact, I don't think that would, might have some value, but I don't think it'd be helpful enough. You got to get rid of the whole regime. So I think that's, again, that everything starts with that. And then I think there has to be some military action against the leaders I just mentioned, that would weaken the pillars of the regime. But then there are these longer term things, Blaise. I'll leave the rest to you.
Yeah, I think that really the point of saying President Trump needs to come out and say U.S. policy is the regime collapse of Iran, of the Islamic Republic, is to put in place the planning and the resources to seize the opportunity whenever it comes next, whether that is next week or in 2 years or in 5 years. I think one of the tragedies has been that we saw the Green Movement, we saw the 2017 protests, we saw what happened after Masha Amini was killed. And each time the U.S. saw the regime getting weaker and weaker and weaker and didn't prepare for the next time something like that would happen. And so when we saw the current round of protests, we didn't have in place the plans, we didn't have in place the procedures, we didn't have in place contacts on the ground with opposition groups, we didn't have Starlink or other communication devices that we'd brought in. And so we need to start that process now so that we have that infrastructure to support the people of Iran the next time that they take to the streets. And this is not, I think the other important thing to understand is this is not something new for the United States. The strategy of regime collapse has been precisely what the United States pursued throughout the Cold War when dealing with a different ideological threat from global communism. And it pursued it well by exactly these means, whether that was in Poland, in Czechoslovakia, in Hungary, by giving the people the means to communicate. Back then it was printing presses. Now it's the internet, by helping them organize. And the other part of it is it's not just about strengthening the people of Iran, it's about weakening the regime as well. And so I think there's lots that we can be doing there, having a program, both public and covert, trying to encourage officials of the Iranian regime to defect. Yes, it's odious. Yes, we don't like them. Yes, they've done bad things, but we want the regime to crumble. And the best way to do that is to start peeling away its layers. So encourage them to defect, threaten them to defect if they don't. Go after their ability to communicate, go after their funding. One of the things we recommended is a quarantine of Iran's oil exports so that it doesn't keep getting the money to rebuild its forces, to pay the Basij or the IRGC. All of these things can weaken the regime so that the next time people come to the streets, it can't respond as strongly. And that's also an important part of the regime collapse strategy.
By the way, it also means going after the money that these senior officials have. Maybe it means don't allowing their kids to study in American or Western universities, which is kind of obscene.
Like Larijani's daughter being in the in California. And now it's come out that Ali Larijani may be the mastermind behind this massacre.
That's right. So you want to isolate this regime, really penalize the people individually as much as you can. But again, I think it might require really looking into giving weapons to anti-regime forces in Iran. You're going to, all the cyber attacks that people mentioned, Blaise mentioned correctly, the Starlink, but there might have to be, some also, things like weapons and things like that, so the people don't get slaughtered in the street like what happened to them.
Yeah, and the money factor is so critical because if they don't have the money to pay these security forces and these foreign mercenaries that they hired to kill, then obviously there wouldn't be any killing, right? In the
Yeah,
first place.
yeah.
And there's been some confusing signals. So, I mean, there's military assets, as you know, that have moved to the Middle East. The F-1 5E Strike Eagle fighters. At the same time, when Trump was asked about this in Davos by CNBC, does this indicate that there's going to be a war with Iran? He was like, well, I sure hope not. We don't want to engage in war. And then you had Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff. He was talking about Iran the other day. And not one mention, like nada, literally nothing about what happened in Iran. Nothing about the slaughter or the massacre, which is one of the biggest events to happen in Iran's modern history. How do you guys read that?
I wouldn't take it. I mean, we've seen this play itself out. We don't know how it's going to play it out, but we did see leading up to the 12-day war in June that Steve Witkoff was pursuing a deal, and I think that's what he knows how to do, and that's what he generally seeks to do, which is to get a deal. The president, I don't know if it means anything what he said one way or another. He also was talking about trying to get a deal right before the 12-day war, even when it was clear that, he understood that Israel's going to attack. So it might mean something or it might not. I think with Witkoff, you have some folks in the administration that played their roles that they've been playing before. I think J.D. Vance also has talked about a negotiation. The concerning comment, I think, about Witkoff was he got into a little more detail recently in a speech in Miami, I guess it was last week. I think it was last Thursday when he said there are 4 areas that we could have negotiations with the Iranians, and he got into detail. That was a little concerning, but I think the president is not exactly aligned with that. We haven't heard that as much. So I don't know. It might mean something. I wouldn't take it to mean something one way or another, as we saw in early June.
Do you guys think that confusion is part of the policy? Because you're right. Before the 12-day war, they think, the attack happened on the Saturday and they had a meeting set up for the Monday.
It certainly could be. I think one of the concerns that has been voiced is the possibility of an Iranian preemptive attack if they think that the United States is coming. A lot of damage that Iran could do either to U.S. bases along the Gulf or to U.S. partners in the Gulf or even to Israel, perhaps. And so perhaps the president is thinking twice about telegraphing if and when there's going to be a U.S. attack. But I think this is one where it's really hard to read the tea leaves of what exactly is going to happen. But it remains the case, as you pointed out, that there are military assets that have been moved to the Middle East that are still moving to the Middle East, like the USS Lincoln aircraft carrier and sort of the ships that are part of that battle group. So it certainly seems like that option is still on the table. Whether a decision has been made or not, it's hard to know.
Yeah. I mean, just to go back to June, I mean, it was clear that there was leaks leading up to the 12-day war suggesting more friction between Israel and the United States than there really was.
No,
And I
yeah,
think
there was none.
that was purposeful. Now, maybe I'm being too hopeful here, and, president needs to be taken literally here, that this is what he wants to do, and he's not intending to do something. I have no idea, but I don't think what he said indicates something one way or another.
Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned those links. I was talking about that the other day with a colleague, and I was like, well, none of it turned out to be true anyways.
Yeah.
And, everyone was being played at the time, but it was a smart move.
Yes, absolutely.
And just to end things here, where is this all headed? $1 million question. Where is this all headed, and is this going to work?
I think the regime is obviously very weakened. Blaise laid out the reasons because of the 12-day war and so on before. We don't know. I mean, some people say they're like a regime is almost dead. It's just like kind of a dead man walking kind of thing. It's impossible to predict. This regime is clearly in its death throes. But as we talk about internally at JINSA, the difference between dying and dead could be a long time. So
Yeah.
we don't know if it's dying, and that could take, one day or a week or a month, or it could take 10 years. It's clearly what's patently obvious to anyone is that the regime has completely lost the legitimacy and the support of the Iranian people. There's still it still has enough supporters that are willing to shoot the Iranian people, but it's obvious by the extensiveness and the size of these demonstrations all across the country that the people want this regime to go. Our job is, the United States' job is to try to help it go faster so that fewer people have to die before the regime dies. We just don't know when that's going to be. But that's clearly, I think, where the direction is. And again, I think U.S. policy needs to be to accelerate this regime's demise.
Blaise, any final concluding thoughts?
Yeah, I would only add, not to oversimplify things, but this regime is a one-trick pony. Whenever it's confronted with some sort of challenge, the only thing it knows how to do is lash out, whether that's internally at its own people or externally at Israel or the United States or our Gulf partners. And so, as Mike said, it's a dying regime, and I think the death throes are going to be violent. And so I think there is going to be more aggression, more violence, a showdown of some kind coming. And hope is that the United States will be there to help protect the Iranian people when that happens, or help protect our partners in the region. And then the next showdown will be the last one.
Thank you very much, you both, for joining us today on Eye for Iran, and thank you for all the suggestions and advice you had. I hope they're listening.
All right, great. Thank you
Thanks
very
for
much
having us on.
your time. Thanks for having us.
While policymakers debate strategy, Iranians inside the country are living through extreme violence under one of the most severe internet blackouts Iran has ever experienced. My next guest has been in constant contact with sources inside Iran throughout this crackdown. Mehdi Yahyanejad is a longtime Iranian-American democracy advocate who works directly on defeating the regime's internet censorship and helping Iranians get critical information out of the country. Mehdi, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, Negar.
Of course. Mehdi, based on what you're hearing right now, how would you describe the situation in Iran at this moment?
So, as you know, we witnessed an unprecedented massacre in Iran almost 10 days ago, 11 days ago, something that pretty much it's been, unheard of in recent history of Iran. And we are all recovering from it, both inside Iran and outside Iran. A lot of people still don't have internet connection in Iran. I haven't heard from a lot of my friends. I haven't heard from a lot of relatives in Iran. So, and this is not just my situation. Everybody else in diaspora feels the same way, and they are actually worried what's going on to their relatives and friends and loved ones and so on. A lot of Iranians, what they witnessed and what they experienced has shocked them to the core. They are even unable to really tell their stories. They're just recovering from what happened, and they're slowly trying to, stay calm and tell their stories. Throughout that process, throughout those few days that there was an intense internet shutdown, basically there was no other connection other than Starlink access. I was able to be in touch with a number of Iranians inside Iran. We had been sending Starlinks to Iran in the past, so I was in touch with a number of them. Some of them, of course,
You helped smuggle them in, right? You helped get that.
Yes, so we helped. Some of it went through, our network, partner network. So I didn't know the end users, but there are a number of them that I'm in touch with, and end users. These were people I knew, or people who have been, activists, citizen journalists I knew personally. So they've been throughout that period. They couldn't come online because if they would have come online and posted it on their own social media, Iranian government would have found out that they have a Starlink. So as a
And kill
result,
them. It's punishable by
yeah,
death.
so they will confiscate their Starlink. It would arrest them. It could have accused them of spying and all that. So in a lot of these cases, these people were online. They were witnessing all these things we were writing, but they couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
So they were sending all their material, all their stories, all the narrative to me. So I was in a lot of times I was rewriting them because these are
You could be
people
their
who
voice.
I could be their voice, and I was rewriting because these are people who post on X, they post on Instagram. People even might recognize their writing, so I had to rewrite their stories before publication because I wanted to make sure that there's no signature, there's no fingerprint of their
Wow.
writing in the text. A lot of times I was taking their text, translating it to English using ChatGPT, and then translating back the English one with the ChatGPT to Persian, and I was using the basically the second version of the Persian version to publish it in Persian. So that was what was going on, and of course I heard a lot of really heartbreaking stories from Iran. One of the stories that I heard that really impacted me was this was an audio of a contact sent me from a distributor in Tehran who had received a call from a small town, and the person, a young man, I don't know what age, he'd said the owner's daughter was killed. Firstly, I'd asked can you delay cashing our check? And the distributor had asked why, and he said because the owner's daughter was killed, and the distributor had said, "Aren't you son of the owner?" And it said yes, and the distributor had said, this is did they kill your sister? And he was, apparently was just in total shock and said, yes, they killed my sister. And he just, he, in a calm but in shocked fashion, he was describing what happened. And this was just one of the stories that people, they were still processing what happened. There was another audio I've received. I haven't published it yet. I actually shared it with NPR, so they might use it in a story. It was a father who comes to the door, and he didn't realize that his son has been outside. He thought that his son was asleep, and he finds this body on the ground that fell on his face. He turns him over, and he suddenly realizes that this is his son who was dying, who was injured, badly injured, and was dying. So this was witnessed by a woman who was running away from the shooters, and she had stopped at that door, and she witnessed this story. So it was basically just he witnessed, and he was shocked because he didn't know his son was outside. So there are a lot of these stories. For example, in Rasht or Karaj, they pretty much gone down a lot of people. It was a massacre. In some areas, people try to take over police stations or a governor's palace and so on. But in a lot of other places, there just was a random shooting. They killed a lot of people just by random shooting to scare people and send them home, basically. So I think a lot more stories are gonna come out just in the next few days. A lot of these, one story I received was from a contact who I talked to a brother of someone who was killed, and this brother had said, "I'm holding on to this video." He had taken the entire episode on camera, and it said, "I'm holding on to this until internet comes back because I want to publish it myself. I don't want to,
Wow.
I want to be the one
And
who
what was the
shows this
video?
to the." So the entire, his brother was killed, and he had this on camera. Basically, the entire time that his brother was, in process of dying. And he had to hold on to this because he wanted to show it to the world. Once the internet comes back, he wants to be the one who does it, and he doesn't want to share it with anybody else.
Of course.
So there are a lot of these stories, and we witness more videos and horrific scenes, unfortunately, in the next few weeks potentially. Of course, Iranian government has brought back the internet partially. I think probably one reason they've done it because they want to signal that the situation is okay. Of course, a lot of their own bloggers and they have access. So a lot of the in terms of percentages, there are much higher numbers Iranian government supporters that who are online right now, but compared to the ordinary population, just because they opened their internet first. So, but as of today, still is a big part of Iranian population or do not have access to
They're
internet.
in the dark, yeah. And
Absolutely.
tell us about paint a picture of some of the scenes, in terms of videos you've been receiving, messages you've been receiving directly from Iran in terms of the level of violence, like you said, that we've never seen in modern Iranian history to this extent.
So in the first few days of the protest, at least in major cities, the protests were typical protests that were happening before. There were people who would gather, security forces would come. Sometimes they give warnings. Sometimes they beat up people. Sometimes even shoot, but not necessarily, shoot pellets and so on. But except one or two cities in Elam that the situation escalated before January 8th. So I think it was January 6th or January 7th that one of the cities in Elam was taken over by the protesters for one night, and then the Iranian government intervened the next day and pretty much gunned down everyone. But in Tehran, until January 8th, and in a lot of major cities in Iran, until January 8th, there was, there were protests, but they weren't in that magnitude. So there'd been, I guess, 10 days that there were protests, but not much had happened. But the combination of President Trump's message tweet that was, I think, on January 2nd, that he said, we are supporting, we are ready, and you go out.
Locked and loaded, yeah.
Locked and loaded. And then there was, of course, Crown Prince's a message asking for people to come out at 8 p.m. on Thursday. The combination of these two created a big crowd on Thursday night. So Thursday night at 8 p.m., one person I talked to said, basically we were on the street and even the security forces were taunting us half an hour before because there wasn't that many people on the streets. But suddenly people poured into the streets, and these were any elderly, kids, teenagers, everybody, because it was more like a celebration. It was.
Yeah, I was hearing people who never protested in their life were out.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, one person I thought, like you said, rich people were there, poor people they were there. It was a mixed crowd, and apparently, at least, this witness, for an hour there was not much happening. People were just getting. The crowd was getting larger and larger, but then people, of course, started moving, and the security forces got scared that this is it, and people are taking over. The regime is being brought down. So they suddenly became a lot more brutal and started shooting. Of course, in places that people tried to take over the police stations and governor houses and so on, the brutality was much higher, and there was even machine guns stationed on the roofs shooting at people and so on. But even in a lot of other places, there were a lot of random shootings, so it wasn't
innocent bystanders.
Absolutely. So one witness from Rasht, I didn't hear it directly, it was somebody else, that the scenes of machine guns in Rasht were the scenes of Private Ryan's movie when they landed on Normandy, and kind of all those Germans were ready with the machine guns, and they killed tons of soldiers right away. So this was the scenes people witnessed in Iran at the time of these protests in places like Rashd, in places like Fardis of Karaj, who had a lot of casualties in South Iran. I think one thing that was significant, we have to remember, it was the videos that came out from Zak's medical forensic center. So I think if it wasn't for those videos, the world wouldn't know the magnitude of these killings, because I think even the videos that have come out of the protest and the killings on the streets so far can't really show the magnitude and the numbers of people who got killed.
Layers and layers of dead body bags, right?
Absolutely. So those videos, pretty much it became like a proof that a massacre has been taking place. There was no way for the Iranian government to really deny this. Of course, it's been unprecedented that they put out a number that, like, I think now it's 2,900 or 2,800
from them, yeah, which is much
from them.
much more higher than, yeah.
So this was like, if Iranian government says, there were 3,000 people killed, you have to multiply that
more,
by 10. Yeah. So that's and of course, human rights groups have so far their numbers, I think, is at 16,000, 17,000.
Yeah, some as high as 20 and could go up further, because
absolutely.
There's the bodies that have been identified with names, and then there's actual dead bodies, right? So that there's where the difference in count can come from, in case people are wondering why there's a discrepancy. It's how they calculate it, right?
Right.
And what they factor into the calculation there, unfortunately. And tell us, I was just reading some posts that you had that you're hearing of beheadings.
Yes, I'm in one witness. So in this case, this person had seen two cars with government plates, but people in it, they were plain clothes. So they were and they were not part of the security forces. They were doing their own things, basically, and they were committing horrific crimes. And in one case, they got to a teenager, and they beheaded this teenager. So it's just the witness, unfortunately, is not in a good situation at the moment, so he can't openly share what he saw. His story is longer and even more horrific. And I'm not allowed to share the entire story, but he had seen.
They could identify him too, right?
Yes,
for anyone
absolutely.
Who may,
So a lot of these people, they're in hiding, they're afraid, they are in a very fragile and bad situation. But he had witnessed beheading, and of course, this is just one account. There are other accounts, and there are in a lot of these cases. There was one video I saw. There was a security forces attacked the protester with a machete, and tried to hit him or her. I couldn't exactly tell. It was from far away. So these cases have happened. They were armed with knives. They were armed with all sorts of weapons to cause damage. And part of it, why they do this type of things is, of course, to come and say, it wasn't security forces. They were like all these foreign agents who were doing these things. as if why should a foreign agent come and, behead a teenager? If there was foreign agents who would have come after you guys and,
No kidding.
So
yeah, that's a big propaganda lie from the regime that's coming out, and I'm seeing it in a lot of Western media by a lot of folks that sit in, think tanks and high up universities that are repeating this regime narrative.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised, for example, protesters attacking Basij stations or police stations, even in some cases, maybe
Which is
mosques
part of a
that are,
revolution anyways.
yeah,
That's how,
part of a
yeah.
revolutionary actions, or even mosques that are, some of these mosques are besieged bases. They are
Yeah,
not
they're
like,
headquarters for them, a
they are
lot of
not
them.
just, they are not like a, mosque as a mosque. Like they are actually
No, it's
places
not a
that
place of prayer and worship like you would think in the Western way of thinking
absolutely,
paradigm. Yeah.
absolutely. So yeah, so there's been those cases, but I mean, all these other things that happened. I mean, this is Iranian government itself that's, of course, doing these damages to show them to the Iranian public. And I have to say, I mean, part of the internet shutdown, continuation of it, is actually for them to sell their own narrative through their national TV, and to some extent has worked, unfortunately. I mean, there are people, I mean, I talked to somebody in Iran the other day and said, oh, I saw some strange people doing some weird things and so on. I mean, I said, um, and he was like, not sure if like they're foreign agents, or I said, like, I mean, if they're foreign agents, wouldn't do these things on the streets. They would go and, assassinate Iranian government officials instead of wasting their time on the street. And if there are any foreign agents in Iran, they are not probably walking around with they are probably dressed as a IRGC or something else rather than being in a
Yes,
plain
yeah,
clothes.
infiltrating
So,
the own
absolutely.
system of the regime
Absolutely. And
itself.
there's no, I mean, I don't think any foreign state would waste their agents doing things that, could be high risk with no much reward. But that propaganda, unfortunately, is working to some extent. I mean, there are people, the reason they do this is just to create questions in people's mind. They don't need to necessarily fully believe it. It's, even people who are putting out this propaganda, they know this, that people are not necessarily going to believe in it. But as long as there's like a question on people's mind, maybe this happened, maybe there is such a thing. That's enough for them, and that's pretty much the role of propaganda in a lot of
Yeah, and
times,
the
especially.
confusion, right, that comes with it. Because
Absolutely,
I spoke to an
absolutely.
eyewitness, Kiarash, who recently left Iran just a few days ago, and he was in Saadat Abad in a neighborhood in
Yes.
Tehran, and he saw somebody. He's like, I don't know if it was a man underneath it or a woman, but dressed in a chador, shooting at bystanders, and so
Wow.
many people dropped dead in front of him. I mean, obviously, he understands that was coming from the regime, but this is a
Mhm.
tactic, like you said.
Of course, definitely. And they were also, I mean, from some of the things we've heard, the regime agents were part of, they sometimes they dress up as protesters. They come, I mean, to recognize the protester leaders and so on. So all these things happen. I mean, in one video I
Yeah, they
saw,
infiltrate just as much as
they totally infiltrate. They
yeah.
try also to partly to recognize the leaders on the streets, to also to help their own agents when they get trapped or when they fall off of their motorcycles and so on. And one video I saw was people attacked one of these IRGC guys who fell off of his motorcycle, and I mean, of course, these, teenagers and the youth, I mean, started attacking him and kicking him and so on. There was one person who came with a white jacket, which was everybody else was wearing black, and I think people mostly wearing black at night because they wanna, it helps them to it's harder to see them and so on. So this person came with a white jacket, completely, I mean, identifiable. Came and saved that person on the ground, basically protected him and asked everybody not to kick and so on. And later, I saw a bunch of comments which totally made sense that these are they send their agents with a totally different clothing that's identifiable. So um, basically, sharpshooters recognize them and now mistake them with the protesters. So that's probably the tactic that I saw in the video. I mean, in that case, probably it was one of their own agents that saved the IRGC guy on the ground by
Wow.
stopping the protesters from kicking.
That makes sense, or else why they wouldn't do that in any other occasion.
Absolutely.
And is there any, I know you talked about some stories that you've received. Is there any one that really, really just weighs heavily on your heart that you'd like to get out right now, that you want the world to know?
I think that was the story that I mentioned, that the distributor, I mean, I listened to the audio. It was really heartbreaking because you see that these people who are poor, I mean, they are, they don't have the money for that check to, and they have to make a call at this situation when they've lost their daughter. They have to make a call to the distributor to ask for the check not to get cashed. So they are living, um, they just by day, and at this such a difficult time, they still have to remember that their check needs to be, stopped from getting cash. So these are people who are in really despair, poverty, and very difficult life. And then all these things are happening to them. So that was one of the stories, kind of combination, seeing the combination of poverty and the combination of tragedy to this scale. I think it was. I still remember it and think about it.
Yeah, it's just so sad. And there was one Iranian that I saw online who came back after, a week of of blackout, who had sporadic, internet service coming in and out, and wrote, "We lived through hell. We will never be the same people again." What does that tell you about this moment and how it's changed Iranian society and Iranian people?
I think, in Iran, of course, we saw, a number three protests since in past 10 years, and we saw 2009. Um, but the extent of brutality, the extent of murder, the extent of killings is just, I think, has shocked everyone. And to some extent, even people didn't expect that their countrymen could do this. It's
Neither did I. Neither did I.
it's just sometimes I wonder. One person was saying this. It's maybe not nice to say, but he was saying like it's the karma of what we did in Syria to the Syrian people, and that we were. Of course, we didn't do it. It was this government, it was the IRGC, and so on. But as a nation, we are paying the price of what happened in Syria, and a lot of these killers probably, got trained in Syria, and to this extent that they don't care. That person who beheaded a teenager. The witness says he looked Iranian. He didn't look foreigner. So he wasn't like, a Lebanese Hezbollah, or he wasn't like an Iraqi Hashbushaidi or something. So he looked Iranian. These people, a lot of them are Iranians, and they just became murderers in Syria, a lot of them, and they came back. They are the same as Daesh and ISIS. Just kind of like, they're fighting that war against them, but they are the same people. It's in terms of both ideology and in terms of brutality, in terms of their dedication to death.
Yeah, I had a friend, non-Iranian friend, ask me and said, Nagar, I know there's millions and tens of millions of people against this government and they want them gone. But who are these people, the Iranians who are carrying this out? Why aren't they putting down their arms? Why are they doing this to their own people?
These are, byproduct of the ideology, unfortunately, like the political Islam, the radicalism, all that, and kind of as partly isolation from the rest of the world and rest of society in Iran. I think these are all combined together. Of course, the Iranian government uh, officials, just kind of, they want us hold on to power with no matter what. If you compare this to 1979, for example, Shah left. You saw that there is, if he wants to hold on to power, he has to kill a lot more people, and he wasn't that type of person, so he gave up on power and he left. But these, the Iranian government, unfortunately, it seems they are going to hold on to power as much as they don't care how many people are going to get killed.
So that brings me to my next question then. Then what about the international community and reaction, right? You would think that if there was more pressure, maybe they would back off a little bit. Today, or Zelensky came out and said that the world has not been there for the Iranian people. And, a lot of Ukrainians, they really sympathize with what Iranians are going through. But there was one Ukrainian that said, you know what, this is different because in the Ukrainian case, it was, a foreign country. It was Russia doing it. In our case, it's, this, whatever you want, government, illegitimate government doing it to their own people.
No, I mean, I think international community overall hasn't been really supportive of, people who've been under genocide or, under mass killings and so on. So, I mean, for example, I mean, first part of the half of the world is actually friend with the Iranian regime. I mean, we don't even want them to support us. Just don't be friend with them. I mean, that's the first thing. And then a lot of these places, I mean, like Europe, for example, continues to have its strong relationship. They just summon these ambassadors. I mean, they tell them next, don't do this, and they say, okay, we're not going to do it next time. I mean, that's like,
It's ridiculous.
as if nothing happened. So, I mean, of course, yeah, they call them, they go to the foreign ministries of European countries, and they say, don't do it next time, and okay, we're not going to do it next time. So that's the extent of. I mean, they haven't kicked out any of the ambassadors. They haven't. Labeled IRGC as a terrorist organization, despite the fact that, I mean, this is not the first protest that IRGC has been doing this, and there's been multiple times. And these things have impact. I mean, once you put IRGC on their terrorism label, it becomes much harder for them to travel. It becomes much harder for them to finance their operations, both inside, outside Iran. It becomes overall, it weakens them in Iran. And if it weakens them in Iran, I mean, if the national army gets stronger, that has long-term ramifications, I mean, internally and so on. So the fact that Europe has resisted doing this for, past 7 years that Iranians have been calling for this in the diaspora, it just shows they don't care. I mean, they don't care as much. And of course, they they are paying the price in other ways. I mean, through the mass migrations, through like all the chaos that has pursued as a result of mass migrations in the European countries, causing the extreme right to rise and so on. So all these things are connected. I don't know why they don't see that. So.
No, I definitely agree with you. And what do people inside Iran that you've been in contact with, what is the one thing that they want the outside world, especially governments, to know about what is happening to them?
They want, first, they want their story to be heard, and they want to be taken seriously. Like, I mean, they want support. Of course, the type of support is, mixed. There are a lot of people who want intervention. They want it tomorrow. There are people who don't want intervention. They have mixed feelings about it because they don't know what's going to happen. There are a lot of unknowns. They don't trust the actors who are going to, implement that intervention. So there are but what is, I think, I hear from everyone, it's universal, is that we want solidarity, we want support. It's just the question, the shape. I mean, if there is a country who doesn't want to be involved through intervention, they could send a medical ship to Dubai to help Iranians, or to send them medical supplies to Iraqi Kurdistan that could be carried to people in Iran. So there's a lot could be done. It's just the will needs to be there, the intention needs to be there, and then I think there can be actions. So.
And just to end things here, Mehdi Jan, can you tell us a little bit about some of the victims that you're learning about?
There are, we see people who have been, the people who've been on X, I mean, on Twitter, they've been killed. There are people, young people, old people. It's just, this morning, I saw a picture of 3 brothers who've been killed in Kiraj. So these are, not
Entire
a,
family wiped out.
yeah, entire family wiped out. I mean, I saw last night they had a celebration for someone who was killed, and it was really sad. It just kind of like, having the music and clapping while you see all of them are really deeply sad. They just, they don't want to, they want to have a new way of celebrating, this afterlife for the person. They and through this you see also the changes in Iranian society. I mean, this is like, it's how much things have changed. Um, I think people are gonna find their way. I mean, of course, we have to see what's going to happen. A lot of it is not necessarily in the hand of Iranian people themselves, and some of it, of course, is gonna be decided outside Iran, and the Iranian people don't necessarily have any agency in it. But even if that doesn't happen, Iranian people, I think they're strong and they're gonna come back from this and they're gonna find their way how to move forward. And Khamenei, I mean, regardless of what's going to happen, I don't think he's gonna, he's not gonna be there forever. So, and he's gonna be gone, and he's not gonna be, he's gonna be remembered as one of the most murderous rulers of Iran.
Yes. Yes, he will definitely go down in history, even like Bashar al-Assad, definitely. Thank you so much, Mehdi, for joining us today and for sharing those stories. It's so important for it to get out to the rest of the world.
Thank you, Negar. Thank you for inviting me.
For our final segment, we step away from policy and intelligence assessments and focus on the human cost of what's unfolding in Iran. Behind every statistic is a family, a memory, and a life change forever. I'm joined now by Dr. Nazak Tavakoli, co-founder of the Iranian Association of Human Rights and Allies, Iman Vaez, a political activist from Canada, and Sogand Fakheri, Emmy Award-winning actress from the TV show Tehran and an Iran expert at the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here.
Thank you for
Thanks
having
for
us.
having us.
Of course, of course. I want to start, on a very personal level. How are you each holding up watching this unfold? Sogan, we can start with you.
I think for me, it's actually a PTSD kind of thing because I feel like the Iranian people are going exactly through what the Israeli people went after October 7th. And actually the images and even how the media compares what's happening in Iran and what happened to the Israelis and the Jewish people, it's like really alike. Some compare it to the Holocaust, and some compare it to the Hamas terrorists in the white tenders, like the big cars, and it's really terrifying. And the fact that a lot of organizations and human rights activists just shut up their mouths and don't even try to maybe post about it, maybe try just to read about it, just be one voice. It could be enough, but no. And I felt like, again, my people is left alone. So.
Yeah. No, definitely. A lot of people have been describing that that feeling. Nazak, how about you?
The feeling's been up and down, from feeling hopeful that we finally will overwhelm this evil, and finally there is a countdown to this regime's atrocities. At the same time, when we hear the news and so many killed, massacred, and day by day, as the communication is more and more between us and within the Iran, we hear stories close to home and horrendous stories. So this is beyond imagination. I believe it's crime against humanity, a massacre that no one can even imagine. The evil that happened, it's just beyond imagination, honestly. So there are days that I can't stop myself crying, and I have to call Iman, and I kind of cry my eyes out, and then he tried to console me and tell me, you know, it's fine, we gonna it's gonna pass, and it's just we have to be there with each other. What this has brought is a strong unity and a bond between us. I think we are all together now in it, and we know that, because otherwise we can't get over it. There is no return. We have to win this, otherwise it's going to be devastating. So this is between it's the sensation and the feelings of all this upheaval, that it's horrendous, honestly. But there is that element of hope there.
Iman, how about you?
For me, I've been in the streets of Iran before, back in 2000s, student strikes, and also back in 2009 Green Movement. I've seen how they act, how they kill everybody, how they do it, but I never thought it's gonna be this much. Like the way they kill people, it was nobody ever seen it. Like in the recent years, we never seen any government do such a crime. And as Nazak said, like I'm sad, but at the same time I'm really hopeful, because we know it's gonna come with a great cost, and they're gonna kill people. But we never had this unity before in the past few, like 47 years. We never had a true opposition. We never had such a support from all the Western countries. Like we see, like back in 2022, it was mostly like condolences, or
Yeah.
like it was more like a gesture. Now we
Yeah,
see
the
more
cutting off
action.
their hair from
Yeah, it
some movie
was.
stars,
Yeah,
etc. Yeah.
yeah, but now it seems like they are actually taking steps, and I'm really hopeful. Especially now, I see that's a lot of movement in the Middle East with the U.S. Navy, and we are optimistic that they finally come, and Donald Trump keep his promise and come and help Iranians, because we can't win this game without the support of other countries. We can only compare this government with Nazi Germany, or the Pol Pot in Cambodia. Like they're that type of government, and we definitely need support. We need them to come and help us. Yeah.
Yeah, and going back to your point, Iman, like I also, as someone who's been, a journalist on Iran for a number of years, and with everything I've seen, and knowing how brutal this regime is, and knowing how they aided and abetted in October 7th and the brutality of that, for some reason, I don't know why, I didn't think that they could be even on this scale. It still shocked me. And to see Iranians doing this to their own people, right? It's something that's next level. Do any of you guys, I mean, obviously without putting anyone in jeopardy, do any of you guys have any family or friends back in Iran?
Yeah.
We all do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to talk
I
about
have.
how what the reaction has been like there, and if you're able to get a hold of anybody at all, potentially, and share some of their stories with me? Whoever wants to go first.
I mostly have friends, and these friends are kind of weird friends because I didn't grow up with them, and I didn't know them until I was 18. And when Tehran came out, they started texting me with the worst words ever. How did you manage to play a Basiji Muslim girl? You know how much we hate them. Like it was like amazing. It was great. I was like, yay, I did it. You hate me. Great. I brought the emotion of people into this. And I became really close to some of them, and a lot of them aren't from Tehran. Like they're from Khuzestan and Ahvaz and so many other places that on those places, killing people is so much easier. Like to the regime, when it comes to Tehran, they try to be like more civil or try to make it less brutal, I feel. And somehow the, I don't know, the periphery, you say, that like the people that the places that are in the center and are in the
Yeah.
center communities, they get like so much brutality. Like the Baluchis, they are one of the most oppressed communities in Iran, and I feel like in those years they texted me and they let me know what's happening, and in 2019, and then the Mahsa Amini movement, like it was a thing. And then during the 12 days war, even we could text, and I lived in Spain, so they could call me or tell me what's happening. And um even then, that, I mean, like, it was a true war between Israel and the Islamic Republic. It was crazy. And you would have thought that maybe back then you wouldn't be able to have normal communicating, but when it happens now, it's like it feels like a true war, like something that the regime is actually scared of. Because since January 8th or 9th, something like that, I stopped receiving any messages from my friends.
Wow.
And I actually said it last night on national TV in Israel, that I'm scared that maybe because of me, or maybe because they got caught and they went through their messages or DMs, like we know it happens. Maybe something that happened to them. And if any one of them is watching it right now, because I know Iranians love this channel and they get a lot, just for you to know, I love you and I still support you, even though you can text me back.
That's so sweet. That's so sweet. And you mentioned, Sogand, what a really good point, that it's like a war, right? Like I've been describing this as, it's no longer a protest movement. It's gone beyond a revolution. This is essentially the Islamic Republic waging a war on its own people. And that's the scenes that are unfolding. But people who are unarmed, right? Where,
Exactly.
they're not equivalent on both sides,
People are
obviously,
fighting
right?
with stones when
But
they get shot in the head.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And this is what a regime that's under survival mode does, because they are feared
exactly.
of the power of the people. Yeah.
And that was a really beautiful message that you had out there. Nazak, what about you? And then Iman.
I can tell you a personal story. My father was executed when I was 10, and he was in prison for 1 year. During his time in prison, we were not allowed to visit. So we had just two telephone conversation, and that was through the Red Cross and the Amnesty International. Uh, Many years after, when I was living in the UK, a young boy tried to connect with me, and back then Facebook was just very new. I'm talking about 10 years ago, probably 10, 15 years ago. I don't know. I've lost count of years now. But he had tried to get in touch, and I had ignored him. But finally, somehow, he found a way to get in touch with me. And I found out that his one of his uncles was a librarian in Evin prison. And he had found this book which they wanted to burn, the old books. They wanted to burn all the books. And he found this book. And on this book, on the first page, it says, this book is a personal belonging of my daughter, Nazak Tavakoli. Please try to reach her and give this book to her.
Oh,
And on every single page, he had written notes from his heart, and he was in solidarity prison for so many days, and he was counting the days and saying, 200 days gone or whatever. And then somebody joined me and they took him, and he didn't explain much about what was going on. I think he didn't want to give that feel to me. It was more messages of it's your birthday, it's your brother's birthday, and have hope, or apologizing even to my mom that I'm sorry I left you all alone. And the one sentence that he kept repeating was that not knowing, it's so hard, not knowing anything, not hearing from you, it's so hard. And anyhow, we going past that, it's got its own story which I can talk about for hours. But this young boy, I was in touch with him right before the uprising. He lived in Karaj. So right before, he actually, we had a FaceTime, and he told me that, look, we are so excited. It's the end of them. And we are all going out, and we're not afraid. We don't have any fear. We just gonna go there, and it's the end of them. We have hope. And hopefully I will see you finally back in Iran. And that's the last I heard from him. And then I know it went blackout, and I know where he was gonna go. It's apparently it was a massacre there in Karaj. Iman knows whereabouts in Karaj. I think they in that area. So I haven't heard anything from him, and it's just killing me. Just again, that feeling, that sensation, my father's sentences, which brings back so many memories, and what we all went through. And I feel for the people in Iran. I know what they're going through. And unfortunately, this regime has made people numb. So they can't even mourn properly. And that's very sad. I think that is what's inside us. We have this heavy weight on our shoulder and in our heart, which we have never been able to get rid of. And I think that day will come when light will overwin darkness. But this is one of the stories. So I just keep checking my phone to see if I hear any news from him. I've passed his number to a few friends to see if they can get in touch with him. And I just hope he's all right. But I know many people are not, and there's no difference. I think we are all a family now. It doesn't matter if I know the person or not. When they tell me that's from 4-year-old been killed up to a 90-year-old, and as you say, they go into hospitals, and I just don't know. I'm speechless. I'm speechless. The crimes against humanity here is just beyond words.
Yeah, Nazak, and I sincerely hope that you're able to get a hold of this person soon. And can you tell us a little bit more about your father?
My father, he was a very kind person, and he truly loved his country. I remember that he had a discussion with my mom right before he was arrested. My mom asked him to flee the country, and his response was that if I leave, who's gonna be here to build a beautiful country for my children to live in? And this is my country, this is my people, and we cannot let go that easily. I'm here and I'm standing strong. And he was one of the people who was behind the coup d'état Niger. So he wasn't part of the military at that time, but our home was a place of sanctuary for many people who were in danger, whose lives were in danger. And I know he helped a lot of people to flee the country back in 1979. And they arrested his whole group one night. They came, and I was only 9 or 10, and I remember it clearly how they came into our home and how they ransacked the whole place, and how brutally they were hitting him and shouting at us. And we were just in one little room, all of us, scared, not knowing what's going to happen. For months, we didn't know even which prison he was in. And finally, my mom found out. And then, even then, he was in Evin, I think it's called 209, if I'm right, that part of prison where they have all the political
Political
prisoners.
prisoners, yeah.
Yes, and after exactly a year, I had a phone call. So, obviously there were no cell phones back then. So they told me, we have good news for you. We have killed your father. And I was 10 years old, and I was hoping for him to be freed any minute. But that's the numbness that I say. What do you say to that? And because they never gave us, we never saw the body. So we never, it was in my dreams. Every night when I went to bed, I remember dreaming that this was all a dream by itself, and it wasn't true. And my father would open the door and come in, and I would hear his laughter any minute. And well, at some point I had to deal with it and deal with reality. And I'm sure I'm not alone in this. My story is one of many, and I'm sure we all have a lot to write about. And one day we all gonna have a biography writing, and it's gonna be a fascinating story in a way. We are all traumatized, 4 generations of us. And I'm not here alone, but this is just part of it. I can talk about it for hours, but I don't think we have time. And I'm sure Iman wants to say something as well.
No.
He's been
And
very
before we
polite
get
and
to
listening to me.
And before we get to Iman, I just want to say how proud you should be of yourself for carrying on your father's legacy. Obviously, you have beautifully.
I do. Every little thing, I think it helps. I think silence is betrayal. And that is what we have to every single person. Doesn't matter if they're Iranian or not. We cannot stay silent towards these atrocities. So we do every little thing that it possibly can in this situation. We do a lot of lobbying and organizing and behind the scene connecting people, networking, and helping those in need financially, and a lot of little things that is everyday thing. You have seminars after seminars, being on the phone, and our life has not been the same. Honestly, it's just it's a lot of interruption in the normal life and in the workload. As today, I had to cancel a couple of patients, but I said,
Yeah,
hey,
thank you for that. You're a
this
doctor.
is more
Thank you for-
important. Iran needs me. The people need me, so I will be there. And tomorrow noon, our Shahbanu, she has announced a day of mourning. So at 12 o'clock. So I've actually put an announcement in my surgery because I can't take another day off. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do this together with my patients and my staff. So no matter where they're from. So we're going to have candles, and we're going to have a minute of silence, and we're going to honor those who lost their lives here. So it's an everyday thing for us. I want the people in Iran to know that we are with you. We are behind you. Every minute of the day, our thoughts are with you.
Yes, of course. And Iman, do you have family or friends still back home, and are you able to get in touch with them?
I have a lot of friends back home and family members too. I don't know anything what's going on with my cousins, aunts, and uncles, and only one of my friends contacted me this morning. Sorry, after Nazak, it's hard to speak. It's not the first time I'm hearing this, and every time it hits me the same as it's so hard. So one of my friends just called me this morning. He said we were so hopeful, but we are not that hopeful like before, and they are all waiting for Trump to act. When Sogand was talking about Zahedan and Baluchistan, what happened last time, I actually had a message from one of my friends because I studied in Zahedan University, and I have many friends down there. I just opened my phone to read his text. He told me, Iman, these days and nights, we don't feel good at all. You know, not so often we get snow in Zahedan. And every time we get snow, we go out and we celebrate. He said it snowed last night.
Wow.
Nobody really enjoyed it. And he thanked us for all the protests and demonstrations you're doing outside, especially in Canada, Toronto yesterday. And that's it. Yeah. Here, one of my friends, he lost his brother. He just realized that 3 days ago. Two other of my friends, they lost their cousins. And they're all young people, like young in their 20s or early 30s. But I don't want to be sad because we don't have time to mourn now. We don't have time to cry. As you see, Nazak, like it's been 40 something years and she's standing strong. One day we go back home and we're going to celebrate the lives of all the beautiful people that we lost in this past 47 years. We got to put our effort now. We got to be angry. We got to put our effort and we got to do the best that we can to save our country. We're going to have a lot of time to celebrate all those lives. The tens of thousands of people got killed in the past 47 years. And unless we don't take action and do something about it, they're still going to kill people. Right as we speak, they're killing and torturing people. And we should put a stop on that. I think we should just focus on what we got to do and try to save our country and save Iranians. Thanks.
And Iman, that leads me to my next question, and we can start with you on this one, is what responsibility do we have in the diaspora?
We have a team that we have a policies and we have a Iran Madari Global Network that is included of more than 19 organizations, parties outside Iran, and we do a lot. So what we're really working on right now, and our main goal is two things. First one is with all the demonstrations that we put together outside Iran, we be the Iranians' voice. Try to take all the media attention that we can, try to show them what's going on in Iran. You remember after Ukraine, many people were in the streets. You've seen the word, or like, but right now, nothing. Like, we don't see any, like in Canada, CBC, not much. Like many other news networks, they don't even talk about it. And speaking of Sogand, compared it to October 7. I'm not comparing it to October 7. I'm comparing it to Auschwitz. Because back then, you guys didn't have an army, and they were they were putting people in the gas
chambers.
And like they were killing people, and there was gas chambers, and there was nobody to help you, the Jewish people. And this is exactly what's happening in Iran. October 7, Israelis had their army to come and rescue. We are more like Auschwitz back then. What Nazis did to Jewish community, Jewish people in Germany, that's exactly what's happening in Iran now. This is much worse than what happened. And one thing is that, and the next thing is they've got to finally come and sit down with the opposition. Today there was this announcement in the EU Parliament. Yes, IRGC is terrorist, this and that, but you got to sit down with the opposition. You should come out. Like, you can't always try to play in between and not be so. You got to be frank. We have an opposition. People in Iran called his name. People in Iran called Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. People in Iran called Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi outside Iran. In Toronto, it was more than 100,000 people in Toronto, 70,000 in Vancouver. Come on, what else you need? You're waiting for? Sit down with him. You got to sit down with him. He has a team. He has more than 100 people working with him. Back in Munich, the first Munich that me and Nazak were part of, there were 30 organizations. Now in Munich, the second one, back in July, there was over 400 activists and groups. They showed up. And we have a big opposition right now. He has a lot of experts, technocrats, people who is consultants. And we have a big team and we have a leader. They got to sit down with him. What I can say, I'm an activist, I'm involved. Yes, I can say something, but they got to talk to the opposition because they know what they want. Because I don't have, I know things, but everybody knows a little bit from their network. But his team, they know exactly what's going on in Iran. They are connected. There are reports that coming out that shows that some of the military and like the police, and they didn't join the Islamic government to like kill people, and they got arrested. 5, I guess, it come out 5 of them got killed.
Some were
5
killed, yeah.
police was killed because they
Yeah.
didn't want to join them. So people, they have a network. 50-something thousand people like registered in the QR code. They got to actually talk to the opposition and try to help them. They can't just decide by themselves. Trump, his team should sit down with the opposition, see what we want, what they can do, and with the joint forces of the Western countries, EU, United States, Israelis, like Bibi spoke to people a lot, so many times, but we need more. I know he's quiet right now because U.S. said we got to take charge, but what happened? 10,000, tens of thousands people got killed, but we need real action, and they got to sit down with Crown Prince, his team. We have a team, like back in 2022, they were trying to figure out who is the opposition. Now we know. And did you see that picture that the guy wrote with his blood, Javid Shah, on the walls? Like, how else they got to show you that we have an opposition and who they are calling. So they got to talk to him, and they got to sit down with him, and they got to come up with action. That's the only thing. We got to just be the voice and tell him, go and talk to him. Support our opposition. We have one. We have a good one. Everybody is calling for him. And that's the only thing we need. Yeah.
And Sogand, Sogand, if you could give one message to the people of Iran right now, what would it be?
Wow. I have so much to say, but if there's one thing I can say is that do not lose hope, because even though it's the darkest hour of the Iranians in the past almost 48 years, besides the moment that this regime got in charge, is that don't lose hope. And not only me, and I think I'm one of the youngest people who have their voice out there in the diaspora, but is that we won't stop fighting, and no blood will be just a blood. It will be a life, like Iman said, where we will celebrate the lives. We will have the time to mourn, and we will keep being your voice. As one of the outlets, international outlets, asked me last week, what do you think we should do? And I was like, we shouldn't do anything. It's not about our opinions. It's not about what do you want for Iran. It's what about Iranians want for Iran. And when they get their lives on the line, asking for the Shah for return, it doesn't matter. You don't live in Iran. You don't know what's happening in Iran.
Exactly.
You don't know about their families, history, or anything. If the people in Iran are getting killed and they know what danger they are in for protesting and uprising, then this is what matters. And that's what I'm here to say, that we will keep being their voice, no matter what.
That's a beautiful message. And Nazak, just to end with you, if you could imagine Iran after this moment, and given everything that you've been through since you were a child and your father was taken from you and killed, how would you imagine Iran?
How would I imagine it? And I used to travel a lot with my father. I've been to up north to the south, and I imagine a day in the cemetery, probably, where me, Iman, all the friends, we are there. We have the mellow music, and we have wine, and we have and we say we tell everybody who's been fighting for freedom, for democracy, for a better life for Iran, and we say that finally we got our Iran back. We kept our promise, and we wish that you were here with us, but we are sure sure that your soul is here and you can feel us, you can sense us, and bringing back the happiness to the streets of Iran, bringing the sense of peace to the lives of every single person living there. They deserve better than this, and it's just the feeling of finally we achieved a goal, and we have achieved something, and we are here together, united. We did it all together. It has never been a one man's job. The prince has a team behind him, and he said the same thing again and again. He's repeated his message, and he wants a secular, democratic Iran. So I'm just glad a lot of people have opened their eyes to what he's really been repeating year after year, and we are all behind him, and we're sure that we can get Iran back and bring it to the glorious path that it deserves.
May we have brighter days ahead of us. Thank you so much to all of you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys opening up and speaking on such a deeply personal level. It means a lot.
Thank you for having us. Javid Shah.
Thanks for having
پاینده ایران، پاینده ملت
ایران.
If you like this episode, you can hit the like button, and you can leave us a comment and just let us know what you think. You can sign up for our weekly briefing newsletter at iranintl.com/newsletter. And you can also check out our dedicated English website at iranintl.com/en.